Good morning, everybody. This is the Personal Playlist Podcast, fondly referred to as the P3 on Voice Ed Radio. I'm Noah Daniel.
Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand. With an equal opportunity.
I am so excited to have Donna Miller Fry here on the Personal Playlist Podcast. Donna is the Assistant Director of Education for the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District. She moved to Corner Brook nearly a year ago after many years in the Ontario system. Donna was the Provincial Lead for leading technology-enabled learning and teaching with the Student Achievement Division of the Ontario Ministry of Education. In that role, she supported education leaders using collaborative technologies to learn and share practice. As well, she supported the renewed math strategy in Northern Ontario through the design and implementation of projects like the Math Leadership Network and the hashtag Not a Book Study with Dr. Cathy Fostnot and Voice Ed Radio Stephen Hurley. She has over 30 years of experience in publicly funded schools in Ontario as a teacher, administrator, online instructor, alternative education teacher, vice principal, and principal. She served as education officer with the Curriculum Assessment and Policy Branch of eLearning Ontario. Welcome to the P3, Donna Miller Fry.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was long. Thanks so much for having me all the way from
so many incredible experiences that could not be edited out of this introduction.
Or I'm just old. I've just been around for a long time. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you today, Noah. Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited that you're here. There's so many things that you were involved in and you know, trying to curate the experience of a person is sometimes about consolidating ideas, but there really is just so much. So you served on the Ontario Software Acquisition Program Advisory Committee called OSAPAC, and you are the co-founder of Awesome MOOC. Did you start those? Were you brought in as a team? How did those things happen?
Well, that's interesting. So OSAPAC is actually a committee that's formed to advise the government of Ontario on what software they should procure for teachers in Ontario. So they have representation from lots of different parts of the education community in Ontario. So I was asked to go as a principal when I was in a principal role and represent principals in Ontario in making those choices. But then as we started to see our role change, like when you think about OSAPAC, it's been around from the time that software used to be on CDs and you had to send it, like physically send the software to boards so that they could put it onto the computers in the labs. So, you know, times have changed a lot. And when I was with OSAPAC, we had to kind of rethink our purpose. And we started to think about how we might be able to provide some more agile forms of professional learning to support educators in Ontario with using digital tools. And so we broke up into different groups and there's a beautiful digital citizenship resource that's on the website that one group put together. There's a beautiful bunch of work done on sort of the SAMR model and how you can build lessons and use technology that way. And that's all on the website. And I was really fortunate to work with Mark Carbone on thinking about how we could support principals, vice principals, education leaders throughout Ontario to become digital leaders, to start using technology in their practice. And the way that we figured out to do that, the platform that we decided to use was sort of an open MOOC style platform, but instead of a massive open online course, we called it a massive open online community and started putting together different ways that people could learn to blog and encourage them to do courses on using Twitter. And what I'm super proud of is that at the end of that, Harvard Graduate School of Education looked at it as one of the international examples of personalization of learning at scale and did a huge report on that. So that was just such an exciting piece to actually have that external lens on the work that we were doing. So certainly one of the most exciting times. Mark's a fabulous leader in Ontario still, even though he's retired from his role with Waterloo Region District School Board. He's still involved in OSAPAC and he's involved in many different projects in Ontario still. Just some fabulous years working with really talented leaders. So I was certainly I have great gratitude for being asked to be involved in that project.
Mark's actually coming on my show next month, and as well, or even this summer, I'm not even sure, but he comes on Ed Mentor sometimes. So I get to hear his voice and learn from him. But you're still in doing what you do. You're still teaching and mentoring for Teach for Canada and you're teaching an AQ course at Queen's?
I just finished that yesterday, and if my students are listening, just a couple days to get those last assignments in. Yeah, I work for Queen's University. I teach some of the AQs around integrating technology into the classroom, and also the e-learning AQ. So we're just finishing up our sort of session on the e-learning AQ right now. I have fabulous students this time. I had 2 in England. Is that ever cool when you can FaceTime or Google Hangout with teachers in England who are really interested in coming to work in Canada and share, different practices? And I thought it was incredibly valuable for the teachers in Ontario that were in the AQ to get all of those different voices in. So we've had a ton of fun over the last 2 months, really learning from each other. So that's been a fabulous experience. And now that I'm in Newfoundland, it's just really nice to continue to have that connection with the Ontario AQ process.
Mm-hmm. At one point, I was reading your blog, and you made a comment about, trying to foster learning experiences across the country. So you're certainly living that already. And it is nice when you have a global lens through which to have these conversations on education, because they create insight, and it also validates a lot of the work that we're all doing, that when we're all doing it the same way in different places, it gives us a sense of accomplishment and that we're on the right path.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I'm on the advisory board with EdCan Network, which is the former Canadian Education Association. And one of the things that we notice when I get together with the advisory board, we're from all over Canada, and we recognize how few people have actually spent lots of time in each of the different systems. I mean, we're one country, but because education is provincial, we tend to be really stuck in, not stuck, that's not the right word, but we're in, sort of one version of public education. And I would have thought, I truly thought that the skills that I had developed in many years in Ontario when I moved to Newfoundland, that they would, things would just flow, just no problem. But everything, when you go to a different province, is different. The learning has been just off the charts, and you start to realize just how different the focus is here. I think here in Newfoundland, they've really spent a lot of time paying attention to supports around educational psychologists and guidance counselors and the qualifications and so on. Very, very highly skilled at that kind of work here in this province. So we have, lots to learn in Ontario from some of the gains that they've made in that area here in Newfoundland. So it's going to be interesting to be able to compare systems across the country and think about where the strengths are, because I'd love to see a role sometime bringing all of those strengths together across the country.
Yeah, and if you do have those conversations when you become a learning community, I mean, I was having a casual conversation with an educator from Edmonton, and I couldn't believe how lost in translation I was listening to conversations about charter schools and some of the different ways they go about, cultural education. It was so interesting. And sometimes, we're more inclined to reach out globally than we are to reach out across the nation. And there is so much value in being able to be more literate in what we're doing in education across the provinces. So it would be really great if everybody could experience all of that and be able to speak to it. One of the things that this show speaks to, however, and it's funny that this is your first song now that we're saying it, it's really about music and telling your story through unpacking the songs that you choose. So people come on the show sharing a nostalgic song, one that reflects their identity, and one that picks them up, lights them up, motivates or inspires them. So you were really flexible with me. I happened to be sick the first time that we were scheduled, and you're so busy. I so appreciate you giving me another opportunity to do this with you. And I've been singing your songs since I've gotten them. So I'm intrigued by this version of your nostalgic song because it's a classic REM song. And even though it contains all the verses as the original, they increase the tempo and the song is actually a minute and a half shorter. So tell us about your nostalgic song choice and why you chose it. Okay,
so it's "The End of the World" "The End of the World" by Great Big Sea. It's an interesting song for me because at one time, so I'll start back just a little bit. My husband and I, when we first started having children, we made a decision that kids were going to come first in our lives, and it meant some crazy travel for us, some crazy commutes. So at one point, we were living within walking distance distance of our children's school. But my husband was driving about an hour north every day, and I was driving about an hour south every day. But we were able to sort of put our schedules together so our kids felt like they had a parent home all the time. So lots of commuting long before podcasts. I know if I was commuting now, I'd be listening to podcasts, but long before that, it was music, and it was cassette tapes. It wasn't even really into the CD era. But at that time, I was doing things like throwing the kids in the car in the summer and just driving across Canada. And we kept ending up in Newfoundland. And I had a thing about East Coast music and Newfoundland. And that's about the time that Great Big Sea got, really hot. So there was this song, End of the World as You Know It. And well, as you know, from REM, but they could sing it so fast. And I thought, I can sing it faster. So I would practice. I would be commuting. I'd be driving down Highway 12 and I would know all the words to the song. And I thought, someday I'm going to race Alan Doyle with this song. So it was part of our life for a really long time. But
I'm waiting for the podcast to come out and have Alan Doyle say, challenge accepted.
I can't wait. So, but the other piece about it, the end of the world as we know it, that's kind of been the theme of my work in schools, right? Every single day. Something has changed and we can't rely on the status quo. So it's kind of my theme song on top of being the nostalgic song from all of those days with those long commutes and having nothing to listen to, but wonderful Great Big Sea songs.
All right, well, let's play it. Here's End of the World by Great Big Sea.
So how do you feel? How do you feel? I feel fine. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. Whoa. That's green stars, flipped earthquake, birds, snakes, and airplanes. Lenny Bruce is not afraid. I have a hurricane, listen to yourself, turn more to the dome, please, let me spin around me, speeding up and not speak, but no street, the lighthouse at the clatter with the fear right now, fire in the fire, represent the southern gangs, and the government for hire in the combat site, the two of us are coming in a hurry with the fears breathing down your neck, team and dreaming, bought a couple, Trump, never couple, look at that low plane, fine man, up down, overflow, baby, listen, gonna give a needle, and see myself, a mile, slipping around, needle, listen to your heart, living in the river, and the river with the right, these are patriotic slam, but next step, feeling pretty sight, it's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. I feel fine.
That's a fun version of that song.
It is. Great Big Sea is always amazing when they're live.
Did it change for you when you moved out east?
I don't.
Like when you think about that song now in the big picture of your life?
I don't think so, because I've always felt a really strong connection to Newfoundland. We spent a lot of time here when the kids were younger. So I would have to say no. That one still sits for me at a very different time in my life. Although the challenge is open to Alan Doyle anytime. I'll take you on. I can do it faster.
Well, that really would be impressive. Add it to your long list of skills. But interesting that you should talk about you always traveling there, because that really leads us into your identity song and this band who's singing a journey song about the different stages of their lives and where they've been going. And it's interesting, actually, one of the artists said about Rick Rubin, who was the producer, who instructed them to write about you, or people will know it's not personal. And it's a very personal song. So tell us how it reflects your identity and why you chose it.
Oh boy. I've loved that song for a really long time. I love the band as well. Love the singers, listen to them when I'm running all the time. But, so there's kind of two levels to that song for me. I would say the very literal level. And, they talk about, 2 years ago being on top of the world, and then it came crashing down. And that's a very personal piece for me. We talked earlier about Osamook, and had a number of things happening in Ontario at the time. And some things happened where all of those were kind of taken away. That whole project wasn't supported anymore. And when you sort of feel like you're on top of everything, you're doing some really exciting work and you're really getting traction, and it disappears from your life, there can be a bit of a grieving process for a while. So it was a tough time. So when I I hear this song and I hear about that, it does kind of make me feel like, okay, so I had to kind of regroup, rethink what was important, really refocus on what I wanted to do with my life. And it's gone well since. It's taken a long way around. Had to move 4,000 kilometers away from home really to find what I wanted to do. But so that's that part really touches me in a really literal sense. But then figuratively, like just thinking about how there are no straight lines in life, and that song turns stereotypes upside down. It's that idea that, kids go to school, they get married, they go on with their life. And that just never appealed to me. I really get up every day wanting to talk to different people, learning from different people, experience different things, try different things. When I sit here at my desk at work and I look across at my walls, I can see the next plans already there. I know where I'm going. I know where the adventures are going to be. And I really look forward to being able to use what I've learned in education to go to places that are exciting, places to work with exciting people and beautiful places in the world, and learn from those experiences. So as that song plays, it really feels like, you can take who you are and you can move into all of these different adventures and you can just experience life in such a rich way.
I am inspired. Let's play the song Long Way Around by the Dixie Chicks. Think of an article that you wrote for EdCan, and I have this quote that you wrote: change is not linear, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's complex, and it's tiring. And to maintain the momentum, it's critical that we build principal capacity and not just teacher capacity, because principal capacity can make it okay to have the chaos and the complexity and the messiness. And I think even beyond the subject of principals, I think that's true about life. And life isn't linear and it's messy and uncomfortable. And thank you for sharing that about the song and why you connect to it on so many levels.
Yeah, I think anyone that works in schools realizes just how messy it is, and figuring out what your purpose is. When I first came to Newfoundland, I had a really challenging situation my first 2 weeks and first 2 weeks here. I didn't know what to do. And I called one of my colleagues and she said to me, okay, stop for a second. I want you to just forget about all the adults for a moment. I want you to put the kid in the center and in your head, picture that child. Okay, so now what's best for that child? Okay, that's best for the child. Okay, well, the adults can work it out. Your job's to do what's best for the child, And so really in the midst of all that complexity, remembering why we're here and what we need to do for kids is for me the way through it, but it doesn't make it any easier. We deal with, as they say here, tangly complex issues all the time, and there are no magic bullets. Right. So it's fascinating work, and you have to get up every day and just say, throw it at me, because they're going to anyway.
But that's why we need grit and perseverance, and we need songs that pick us up and lift us up and get us out of those zones so that we can bounce back and we can do the work that we're there to do and know our why. And you picked a song that is a very bounce backy kind of song. It's a classic of Canadian music from a band who actually always play it last except for their encores. Why this song?
Why this song? This is a song that my kids and I danced to many, many times when we'd see Spirit of the West live. And it would be in our house all the time, and it would be when we're driving down the highway, when we're headed to Newfoundland, when we're headed to BC, it didn't matter. We'd play this song all the time. We could sing it at the top of our lungs. And to find out that the lead singer is ill, quite ill, early onset Alzheimer's, was devastating. My nephew, who's exactly the same age as me, recently passed away from ALS. And so we've gone through a similar situation in our family. So I've watched Alan Doyle here in Newfoundland spearhead this amazing fundraiser for John Mann from Spirit of the West. And he was able to bring together so many of my favorite musicians from across Canada to record this song in a bathroom. But again, that grit and resilience, we are going to do this for John. We are going to record this song for him and raise the money that he needs to take care of him right now, because he's done so much to make our lives so special for so long. So right now, this song, I think it's sitting at about $42,000 raised so far through this song, aiming for $50,000 on GoFundMe. So if anyone hears this and wants to go contribute to the fundraising for John Mann, the lead singer of Spirit of the West, please go do that. But this version was done by who we call the Spirit of Canada, and you'll recognize lots of the singers, Jim Cuddy, Sarah McLachlan, Ed Robertson, Colin James, Sherry Elrick, Alan Doyle, all got together to put this together. And every time I hear it, I can picture John Mann, who's in the video, dancing on stage with so many people continuing to support him in this time of crisis. And so it helps us all remember as we're dancing that every single day that we have is a gift, and we should treat it that way.
I'm sorry for your loss, and it is important to have the community rally together, and music is so powerful. So I'll definitely put a link to that GoFundMe page onto the blog post that will come out Tuesday. But let's pick ourselves up and listen to this cool tune.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm not at my best. I've been gone for a month, I've been drunk since I left. And these so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink, I need home for rest.
Yep. And a 1, 2, 3. We arrived in December and London was cold. We stayed in the bars down on Charing Cross Road. We never saw nothing but brass taps and oak. Kept the shine on the bar with the sleeves of our coats.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm not at my best. I've been gone for a month, I've been drunk since I left. And these so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink, I need home for a rest. Take me home!
Houston Station, the train journey north. In the buffet car, we lurched back and forth.
Past our crooked dikes, through Yorkshire's green fields, we're flung into dance as the train ticked and reeled. You'll have to excuse me, I'm not at my best. I've been gone for a month, I've been drunk since I left. And these so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink, I need home for a rest. Take me
me home.
By the light of the moon, she drifts through the streets, a rare old perfume so seductive and sweet.
She teases us and flirts us, the pumps all close down, then walk us on home and deny us around.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm not at my best. I've been gone for a month, I've been drunk since I left, and these so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink, I need home for a rest.
Take me home.
Heater's empty, it's damp as a tomb. The spirits we drank are now ghosts in the room.
I'm knackered again. Come on, sleep, take me soon. Don't lift up my head to the 12 bells of noon.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm not at my best. I've been gone for a month, I've been drunk since I left, and these so-called vacations will soon be my death. I'm so sick from the drink, I need home for a rest.
Take me home.
And you feel that power of coming together in that song, and you feel the Canadiana in that song. And it's so great that it's picked you up and your whole family. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the playlist now that you've shared your songs?
Oh, I think it was really challenging to pick the songs, but I actually stuck with my first picks. But I flipped back and forth. I have U2's Beautiful Day is one of my favorite songs ever because it's kind of my mantra. Every day that you have is a beautiful day. So I really wanted to have that one in there, but I couldn't do like Deb Donsky and insist that you had 4 songs. I'm too much of a rules follower, so I had to stay within the confines of what you said. It was only 3, and those 3 seem to work for me. And I'm quite happy with the choices. But they're earworms. Look out! You're going to have them in your head now going forward for a while.
Well, this show is full of earworms. I really enjoy it quite a lot. Every week is a new adventure of earworms, really. So Donna Miller Fry has published articles in the Canadian Education Association Journal, Connections, and K-12 Blueprint. She contributes to conversations about education on her blog, Learning About Learning. She leads collaborative learning projects and courses for education leaders, working always to encourage and enable educators to become connected leaders. You can find her on Twitter. I'll put the link there. She's given me the Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn pages and her professional portfolio. It's totally worth getting to know how she thinks, getting to know her voice, an essential voice on the Canadian landscape of education. And I am so privileged to have had this conversation with you. Thank you so much for this time. Do you have anything that you want to add before we go?
Oh, just that I'm the privileged one. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share. I think you're doing a wonderful thing here, and putting us all through this critical thinking exercise is wonderful to have the opportunity to do. So thank you so much. And I've been listening to some of the other podcasts, and really fascinating how we're able to get into the lives of some of the people that we only know online. And that's been the neat part. You know, sometimes when you only know people through social media, you're seeing a very 2-dimensional side of them. But this podcast has certainly helped me really see what makes people tick.
I thank you so much. It's powerful in the classroom, but it is amazing how through these conversations with educators, we get to see them beyond their profiles, beyond the things that they say on social media, and really get into the heart of who they are. It works for students too in the classroom. And I'm glad that it speaks to you. So I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm going to play you out. Thank you for joining us on the P3, the Personal Playlist Podcast. I'm Noah Daniel. This is Voice Ed Radio, and I hope you have a fantastic day.